YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Rome 2 with another online battle. This time it's going to be Baktria versus Macedon. Myself is Baktria. And recently I've showed you several battles where going infantry heavy dominated going horse heavy. This time I've gone horse heavy, and I didn't really expect the Macedonian to go infantry heavy, but he did. And it's not a bad strategy. When you think about it, Macedon has the Salian Cab, which are a nice unit. We've also got Thurio spears, but then again, so does Baktria. Baktria is going to have superior heavy cavalry, so that's going to make a big difference. So what I've got here, I've got 4 mercenary Scythian horse archers. I've got 4 Bactrian noble hordes, which are good horsemen, but they're not nearly as powerful as they used to be. Their main benefit is that they have huge armor for a horse unit. Their attack isn't anywhere near as good as it used to be, but it's good. I've got a Bactrian royal guard for my general, which is a nice unit to bring with them now. And then I've got 5 thorax swordsmen and a single Thurio spear on this flank. And then I'm hiding a unit of Hellenic cataphracts back here that I would like to save for late game or just an opportune moment. And then I've got, the same on this flank over here. So my opponent, you saw his army coming in. He's got several Thurio spears, several Cretan archers, lots of thorax swordsmen, and he's only got 2 citizen cab and a companion cab gen. So he's banking on being able to shoot me to death from the front while his thorax swords hold me. You can actually see the lighthouse of Alexandria back there in the background. Pretty cool, huh? So, in any case, when I came in, he was chatting, and he's like, yeah, come at me, bro, come at me, just kind of, I guess, throwing out some friendly trash talk there. I guess nothing that was absurd. I don't really see why it is that I should be forced to attack him, but since I didn't bring any skirmishers, then I suppose that's what I'll be doing, which means my opponent gets to stand over here. So I'm kind of figuring out my plan. I'm just going to take his thorax swordsman head on with my own so that hopefully I get the charge and he doesn't. And then I'm going to use my Bactrian Royal Guard to try and punch a hole in this flank and start a wrap up. In the meantime, I'm going to send my horse archers in behind his army just to scout and to start picking at his cavalry. If I can kill his cavalry and then save these Hellenic cataphracts for late game, these guys can really do some damage, because any enemy unit that's not braced, or even if they're braced, is going to get badly damaged by a charge of Hellenic cataphracts, and if he doesn't have any cavalry to slow me down, then he's going to be in trouble. And over here I already chase off the citizen cab and managed to kill several of its units. The Scythian horse archers have very nice damage, and they can do a lot of damage to fairly light horsemen like this. I'm just going to stay away from his Thurio spears. I don't want them throwing javelins at me, so I've got to keep a respectful distance. And that'll kind of get my opponent having to watch. So the nice thing about horse archers is you can leave them to skirmish on their own, but see this, how I've got them here. Let's go up here. See how I've got them over here to his back. So now my opponent has to watch what I'm doing from the front and keep an eye on these horse archers. Now, if he pretty much ignored the horse archers, they wouldn't cause a huge amount of damage as long as he wasn't letting them get his general. But people just don't like to ignore horse archers that are behind them. So I'm going to sit here and keep shooting like random times and coming in just to keep him busy. And then what I'm going to do is move up my Bactrian noble horse here and here. And then same thing on this flank, coming up just to give me positions. And then I'll make an infantry charge in the center and try and slip my Bactrian noble horse through some gaps just to cause some distractions. And all the while my horse archers can keep coming in and shooting. So the idea is to try and break my opponent up. So when you've come cav heavy and your opponent's come infantry heavy, you've got to get some gaps created, and you've got to make sure that your cavalry stays mobile. And if not, then you really don't have any advantage with your cav heavy army. So, and again, he's got Cretan archers. This is going to be a danger to my men. These guys are quite good. Right now, he's been using them to keep my horse archers at bay, but he does have one unit that's turned around frontwards, and it's going to start firing at my thorax swords as they approach. But he shouldn't get a whole lot of kills with just one Cretan archer. Again, I'm keeping his guys guessing with my horse archers. And he's used rapid reload on this unit here. It hasn't gotten any kills yet. Probably will on this volley, though. Wow, it didn't. So that's actually great for me. Yeah, you can see I've got all my units set up, so I'm in a surrounding position. My opponent has his Thurio spears behind his troops for protection, so again, I've got to create the gaps, and I've got to make this happen. So here comes the charges. His guys are going to get more javelins on my men because his Thurio spear's behind, but my guys will get the charge, which won't be huge, but it'll help. But I ended up losing a lot of men from his Cretan archers and his javelins. You can see that I'm taking a lot of fire here. But I've also got my Bactrian Royal Guard coming here. and it's going to really be a problem for this thorax swordsman because it's a stronger unit. And then look, I've already set a rear attack here, so I'm setting up an immediate pincer movement on his, or rear charge, whatever you want to call it, on his thorax swordsman. And my Bactrian Royal Guard's a very powerful unit. You can see back here I've got his citizen cav distracted. The horse archers, again, just spraying out stuff. I get a quick charge into his Thurio spears, which I'll pull out of in a second, and then I've got my own Thurio spears just throwing javelins at his thorax swords. And here you can see how quickly I was able to do some pretty serious damage to this thorax swordsman. And then I'm going to use the battle rhythm again on my general to punch his attack up just a little bit. And you can see that I'm causing a waver on that thorax swordsman. But now my Bactrian noble horse is in a little bit of trouble, but this is causing some morale issues for my opponent as well. But yeah, again, while the engagement proceeds in the front line, see how I'm going to try and keep my cav mobile, keep them moving. The heavy armor of the Bactrian noble horse just protected me a lot from all those Thurio spear javelins. And here I'm just going to pin these thorax swordsmen down. And again, see how I'm just trying to split the gaps, and now his companion cav came in for a fight, but now I can come behind it with horse archers, and I'm just going to start spraying him with arrows. So my opponent ends up having to pay pretty dearly for bringing his general in here and only getting 27 kills. He's lost 20 of his cavalrymen. So that's perfectly fine with me. And again, look, I'm bringing this Bactrian noble horse. I'm going to come back here and thread this gap and run a rear charge here. And then I've got this Bactrian noble horse that just threaded this gap and is now going for his swordsman. So if you're going to bring your Thurio spears and you're going to have this, he really should have kept all of his Thurio spears. Just keep them here. And it makes it a lot harder for me to get done with what I want to get done. But by moving around and trying to attack me and actually paying attention to my horse archers, it leaves him open for this. So whereas this fight was probably in his favor, which it is, now it's going to actually turn it around to my favor with Bactrian noble horse in his rear there. And now I'm going to get to go after some of these Cretan archers too and silence them for a moment. So it allows me to just keep my opponent busy everywhere. And these Bactrian Royal Guard are just tanking it out. They've gotten 50 some odd kills for only 20 losses. And then it's now late game, so here comes my cataphracts. Whoops, I'm going to pull my cataphracts in from this angle. And again, see, I've got this Thurio spear pulled out from the fight with my horse archers, and I eventually turn off fire at will, so I quit wasting ammo on his Thurio spears. And then again, just got his guys turned around backwards, and now his archers are fleeing for their lives. They've got his general and spears, but his general has just died. Is only down to 10 men. But I'm starting to lose a thorax swordsman over here, so I'm going to reinforce with this Bactrian noble horse. Just got to keep this thorax swords busy while my general finishes tanking out what he needs to do over here. But then my cataphract, again, slowly making its way to the battlefield. It is kind of a tank, and I kept it at a safe distance for just the right moment. So now this cataphract is going to go unopposed by enemy cav, and all of his spears have been split away. In the meanwhile, my Bactrian noble horse continues to run hammer and anvil charges again because he's allowed his spearmen to be split away and taken away from the main engagement. And I'm going to be able to cause all kinds of chaos in his back lines. And here comes my horse archers again, outmaneuvered his Thurio spears, and now I'm shooting into the back of his thorax swordsman, while my Bactrian Royal Guard again continues to tank. And then I'm going to bring my mercenary Scythians up. So now this is going to draw my opponent's attention. He's got to now come back and face me, while I've still got this Bactrian horseman here and a cataphract coming. So I'm basically giving him too many things to think about and making it hard for him to defend with his infantry. But you can see this Bactrian noble horse has gotten 165 kills, been very effective, and it's helping to get rid of his infantry. I finally got a break right here with one of my thorax swords. So we finally have broken the enemy line, and then here comes my favorite part, which is a cataphract charge. And this is going to be into the rear of his thorax swordsmen, who are distracted with my Thurio spears, and you can see that that's just going to be absolutely devastating. And I'm going to let them stay there and finish that off. They're not going to lose a single man, and they're going to utterly and totally destroy that thorax swordsman, which would have otherwise won that fight. So again, bringing in the cataphracts for the late fight allows them to have much less opposition and to hopefully be more effective. I'm going to get one more charge against these thorax swords who weren't very well braced there. And again, my general's out here now tanking out a Thurio spear. He's got 110 kills, and the sword fight is actually starting to swing into my favor. Meanwhile, I just need to kind of use my horsemen to try and keep his Cretan archers off my back for a minute. But again, my cataphracts just racked up 61 kills, 62 now, and haven't lost a single man yet. So they're going to come out and help pay for themselves in the end of this fight. Now my opponent is forced to bring his spearmen in to try and stop my victorious infantry, which means that he's just setting himself up for more cataphract charges because he's got to continue to engage my infantry. And again, over here, my general finishes off these Thurio spears. These swords start wavering, and now I've got even more thorax swordsmen free. My opponent's in very bad shape at this point. I've got my own Thurio Spears and Bactrian Noble Horse here facing off of his. And again, my Cataphract's just swinging around to find their next charge position. These guys are already winded. But if I would have brought these guys as my general, where I could have used second wind, my opponent would have known that my general was missing from the fight, so I kept these guys hidden for basically the duration of the whole battle. And here they're going to come in again for another rear charge. Cataphracts and rear charges are unstoppably powerful. You can see it just, even without a whole lot of speed, with them being tired, just wrecks that Thurio Spear unit. And you can see their numbers dropping there. So now my Cataphract just hit 100 kills, no losses still. And it's just going to keep adding up. So yeah, my opponent has nothing to stop these Cataphracts with at this point. I can just charge his units and retreat until they're dead, which is why I brought them out in the late game. If I was able to deal with my opponent's cavalry, then the Cataphracts almost become a tool kind of like elephants. They're just going to be so powerful in the late game that there's very little that my opponent can do about it. And I'm actually going to turn around and charge back into these guys again and finish them off. So let's watch another rear charge from these Cataphracts. So that is going to pretty much do them in. Whoops. And you can see now my Cataphracts jumped up to 130 kills and are still untouched by his javelins because of their armor. And now I'm going to turn around and just charge these Thurio Spears head on because they're throwing javelins, which means they're unbraced and they're also in thin lines. So one way or the other, they're not getting a bracing bonus. So again, even having spears in late game like this isn't going to help him. You see my Cataphracts turned around and just tanked even more kills. You can see their kill level jumping up, so it's now 180 almost. And that was straight on into Spearmen. So again, they became an excellent late game tool. Lost one man, got 180 kills, maybe plus a little bit. So it's an interesting battle. So don't think that cav heavy is impossible against infantry heavy. And if you're going to come infantry heavy, you kind of have to stay committed to it. So look at this. My opponent had plenty of infantry to deal with me, and he had archers to help deal with me. All he should have done was just created a secondary line facing backwards against my cavalry. Now, could I have punched through it? Probably, because we would have had to spread pretty thin. But it still would have made it more difficult for me. And while I was trying to punch through it, he could have taken his Cretan archers, targeted my Bactrian Royal Guard, and tried to destroy it. Because then that would have been a huge blow to my men. And again, the horse archers were just a distraction, and my opponent was allowing himself to be distracted with them. But yeah, look at that. So one loss to 180 kills. I would say that paid for itself there. So anyway, hope you all enjoyed this one. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.